better to be proactive than reactive. And the reason being is once you get into a reactive state, number one, you don't always have as much time to deal with the IRS, especially if they throw a bank levy or a wage levy involved, versus being proactive. Then you can you have a little more time to work the case and get into a better situation, and just have to react once they become aggressive. You also could potentially avoid having a lien filed against you by being proactive versus reactive. Sometimes people, they confuse a lien and a levy. A lien is more of a passive type of aggression, but if it's filed, then it can drop your credit score. It can make it more expensive for you to borrow money if you're going out to buy a car or things along that. And of course, it's not going to allow you to buy a home. So it's much better to be proactive than reactive. Even if it's an initial letter, it just comes regular mail and says, hey, you owe this much money. Because if you can't afford to pay it, and you're like, well, how am I going to pay this? It's not going to be like a regular creditor where they're going to say they send you another letter and another letter, another letter, and then make a couple phone calls to you, because some kind of action is going to happen, and it may not be something you may like. And there's been so many times where I've talked with people, and the next thing you know, their income is being levied. And when it's levied, everything's a downward spiral, because now they can't pay their rent, they can't pay their car payment if they have one, but more importantly, they don't have the money to pay us to help them unless we can get them financed. And if they don't get financed, sometimes they're just out of luck. I mean, they have no one to turn to because they can't pay us, because everything's being taken by the IRS. That's why it's better to be proactive than reactive.
Last thing you want to do is wait. It limits the amount of time that not just you, but anyone who's to assist you with the IRS matter to be able to handle the case. They are time sensitive. A lot of these are automated. So if the IRS sends a letter to your employer or to the bank, that money is gone. And so in order to be able to get those actions to stop and allow you to be able to have your financial freedom back, it takes time. So the last thing you want to do is wait. It's better to be proactive than reactive.
Well, it's always better to prevent an action than it is to have to remove it once it's happened, with the IRS. For instance, we have a client that had many years unfiled, and they were about to go to an accountant and file their back returns, but luckily they called us for a consultation beforehand, because we came up with a strategy to where if we did not have to file them married filing jointly, we decided it was more strategic for them to file married filing separate. That way we didn't have to unnecessarily attach the debt to the spouse. And in turn, we were able to keep them from putting a lien on the spouse's house. Whereas if they went to a CPA or someone just to file returns who doesn't have their best interests on the back end, once those returns are filed, of the effects it might have, it can save them a lot of struggles in the future, as far as bringing hardship onto someone else who may not have to have any hardship as far as the tax matter is concerned.
Anytime the federal government sends you a notice that you have a federal tax debt, they're attempting to collect the debt. There are deadlines that are set. The Internal Revenue Service has a fiduciary responsibility to collect the debt. They don't send out the letters just to let you know that there's a problem. They are attempting to collect a debt. Anyone that receives a tax or letter from the Internal Revenue Service should observe the deadline dates. We do. By observing the deadline dates and being proactive, we can help the client eliminate aggressive actions such as wage levies, bank account levies, tax liens, and so on. So the message that we give is being proactive is always an advantage when dealing with a tax issue.